Morning, Kate.
Good morning, Steve. How are we today?
I'm good, but I'm just a little bit conscious of something I've pressed on Zoom, which is making, I think I've got that auto center thing on.
Oh,
So it's following me around. So
zooming in and out and looking a bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
see
Oh,
that?
you see, that's where you're too flippant with things, and you just saw a message come up on Zoom and you said yes, whereas it came up on mine and I was like, I don't know what that is, so I said no.
Oh, is that what? Okay,
Yeah.
right. Well, I was about to try and click some. I thought now's not a good time to try and change just before you delivered a webinar live to change settings. So
I guess as
apologies.
long as it doesn't like zoom in too close on your face, that's
Well,
a bit
that's
dismissive.
the danger. So yeah, so apologies. Morning, everybody. I know we've started as usual. Quite a lot of people joining today, so we'll just give it another minute for everybody to log in before we start. But yeah, so apologies if I do. It is zooming a bit, but anyway, I'll sort it afterwards.
We'll
Anyway,
forgive.
how are you? Happy New Year.
Yeah, happy
Hmm.
New Year to you. A bit late now on 24th
Yeah.
January. How's your Jan going?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, like kind of Christmas was months ago. Seems to have disappeared. But
A distant memory. And all
distant
we're left
memory.
with is the rain.
I know, depressing. But right, should we crack on?
Yep, let's do it.
Good. So, yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks again for joining on our next Agency Masters webinar, the first, as we mentioned there, of 2026. And I think it is probably too late, but Happy New Year to you all. Hope you're all back fully refreshed, back into swing of things, and ready for kind of what 2026 has in store. Also, particularly grateful because we do understand how busy agency life is, particularly at the start of the year. So we do appreciate you taking your time to either join us live today or perhaps to watch this a bit later on. The aim of this session is to be kind of practical, focused. We should finish around about 20 past-ish, so some time to grab another coffee. But it's going to be focused, hopefully, providing some kind of genuine insight and hopefully some kind of takeaways for you to apply back in your agency. As usual, some of the stuff we cover today may be stuff that you're doing already, which is great. It reinforces what you're doing. Some of it might be new to you, so hopefully we find it useful. But for those who don't know, quick introductions, haven't joined our previous webinars, I'm Steve. I'm one of the co-founders and directors here at the Agency Works. We are exclusive implementation and client success partners of Synergist, who are the UK's leading agency management system. Some of you may be users already. I'm here as usual with my webinar co-host Kate, who is a principal consultant, but in a previous life has some years, many years experience, Kate, of working in different agencies in kind of operations and finance roles. So really pleased that you can join me once again, Kate.
Thanks for having me back.
It's quite all right. I did ask for another webinar co-host, but apparently I'm stuck with you for another
Yeah.
year. So
There's no getting rid of me, I'm afraid.
that's all good.
Like a bad smell.
So, yeah, I know, but it all good one. But so we know that agencies that consistently outperform, they're not tracking more metrics or kind of building bigger dashboards. They're kind of much more focused on a small set of indicators that give them early warnings and the signals that show where performance or clients or teams are heading before the finances move. So today we're going to look at how to shift from purely backward looking reporting to a measurement framework that actually helps you run the agency on a day-to-day basis. And we'll explore the differences between things like leading and lagging indicators. We'll introduce a balanced scorecard, but basically we're looking at bringing everything together to give you a kind of a fuller picture. So how the right metrics can help you spot problems and opportunities months in advance. Now, most importantly, we'll show you how to do this in a way that's practical, focused, and actionable without drowning in data or kind of turning this into a full-time reporting job. So, with that in mind, let's start with what the real problem is and what the real problem that agencies face is when it comes to metrics. Okay, so start the year metrics, not exactly the sexiest of topics, but they can be if you do them right. So, if like myself, you sat in countless board meetings where you pour over last month's numbers and pat yourself on the back, or maybe slip into a mild panic, we're looking at revenue margins, utilization, all the important stuff, but they tell you what's already happened, not what's about to happen. So, this is where these two types of indicators come in. So there are two types of metrics that you need to understand if you want the metrics to really help you run the agency. So the first one, lagging indicator. So they tell you what's already happened. So they're almost kind of like your autopsy. So in a board meeting, we're all doing it. What's the revenue, margins, utilization figures, EBITDA? They confirm the outcome, but only after the fact. So when these go red, the damage is already done, and you don't manage lagging indicators, you react to them. Now, on the other hand, leading indicators are different. They tell you what's about to happen. So they're almost kind of like your health check. So these can be things like pipeline versus target, pipeline conversion rates, maybe client engagement levels, over servicing trends, staff happiness, burnout signals, all things like that. But these are metrics that move before those other financials do. So here's the problem. Most agencies we speak to only track lagging financial metrics. As I mentioned, sitting in board meetings, analysing last month's results, debating whether or how you miss targets or how you hit targets. But by that point, it's already locked in. The warning signs were there, weeks, maybe months ahead. You just weren't being measured. So when you don't track those leading indicators, revenue misses can feel like surprises, client losses can feel sudden, resignations out of the blue, but they're not. They were predictable. They're just being missed when you're doing your reporting. And once you start tracking the right leading metrics, something shifts. You stop managing the business through hindsight and you start managing it through more foresight. So that's where the balance scorecard comes in. So instead of just looking at the financial metrics, you're tracking four interconnected perspectives. So as you can see, financial, customer, internal processes, and learning and growth. Now, these perspectives connect a bit like dominoes. So if you tip one, hopefully the others should follow.
So we know that agency success depends on multiple factors. So your team's development predicts innovation, innovation predicts client satisfaction predicts retention, retention predicts revenue. You can see problems coming months in advance. So lots of agencies obsess with their utilisation rates. So this is a classic lagging financial metric. So say your utilisation rate is above 85%. What happens when you start tracking all four perspectives? You discover that high utilisation drives staff burnout, which increases errors, which upsets clients, which kills renewals. So it's a chain reaction.
So let's now kind of break each of those ones down and look at each of those perspectives. And we'll start with what's probably the most obvious one, which is financial metrics. So again, mentioned familiar stuff, revenue, margins, EBIT, cash flow. So they are numbers that you expect to see in your board reports. And don't get me wrong, they obviously they do matter. However, in the balance scorecard, they kind of play a different role. They're not your steering wheel, they're your scoreboard. So they kind of tell you how the game ended, not how it's going. So in this framework, financial metrics are outcomes. They're what happens when everything else in the business is working properly. So that could be your people, your processes, your clients. If you only manage the financials, you're always late to the problem. Now, within the financial perspective on a balanced scorecard, there are metrics that help you look forward. And this is where most agencies miss a trick. So things like pipeline versus target, pipeline conversion rate, these are pure leading indicators. So if your pipeline is below target this month, you already know what's coming. Revenue misses not this month, but maybe in 2 or 3 months' time. And nothing magical can go back and fill or fix that gap. And it's the same with conversion. If your conversion rate has been stable at, say, I don't know, 35%, suddenly drops to more like 25%, that's not a sales issue, it's a warning signal. And it might be through, we've done webinars on this, but it might be weaker briefs, kind of longer sales cycles, decision makers going quiet, pricing resistance, but whatever the cause, the outcome is predictable. The drop in conversion is tomorrow's revenue crisis, but showing up today. So the point isn't to stare hard at last month's revenue, it's to watch the leading signals inside your financial metrics, the ones that give you time to act, not just explain. And once you start doing that, finance stops being kind of reactive reporting and becomes an early warning system for the whole agency.
So, the customer perspective is where you spot tomorrow's problems. So, firstly, feedback. We talk about NPS quite a lot in our webinars, but annual NPS is going to be too late. It needs to be tracked per project. So, you need to get that feedback while it's fresh in everyone's mind. Secondly, watch client engagement. So, are they meeting with regularly with you? How quickly do they respond to your emails? Are they bringing you into strategic conversations or just briefing you on tasks? When engagement drops, your revenue is going to follow 6 months later. And thirdly, monitor account growth signals. So, are they introducing you to other departments, asking about new services, extending contracts early, or are they going quiet, skipping the meetings, delaying decisions? So, these behaviors predict revenue changes 6 months before they show up in your numbers. And process. So I love a good process, and internal processes is where your magic happens. So these are the engines that drive everything else. So project delivery, creative development, client servicing. The key is identifying which processes directly impact your customer and financial goals. So focus on the killer metrics. So one on time delivery will show you how you've performed. So this is a lagging metric, but over servicing percentage, that's your margin killer right there. Imagine discovering you're over servicing by say 20% on all your retainers. That's 1 day a week of free work. So if you dig deeper, find its endless tiny amends, or then implement a structured feedback process to cut your overservicing down to 5%. And the result, you've just added 15% to your bottom line without winning a single new client. That's why process metrics matter, especially when you track trends, not just monthly snapshots. So your client amends percentage is your quality indicator. So high amends mean poor briefs or misaligned expectations. Track these weekly with trend lines.
Absolutely. And then finally, innovation and growth metrics. These are your earliest warning system. So, as we know, agencies are people-based. So, if your talent isn't thriving, everything else suffers. So, keep an eye, as Kate mentioned, on that kind of staff happiness with more kind of short monthly pulse surveys rather than doing the annual reviews. If happiness drops below 7, there is a chance you'll see quality issues and possibly resignations in 3 to 6 months' time. So if innovation time falls below 10%, then you're potentially in survival mode. And if training hours are below 2%, then you might have a skills gap already in the forming. So these might feel like fluffy metrics, but they're often the clearest, earliest warning signs that you've got. So once you've identified these, how do you go about reporting all of this without drowning in the data?
Oh, I'd rather be on that desert island right now than where it's raining in my garden,
Yeah, it
Steve.
looks
How about
nice,
you?
doesn't it?
Yeah. Right, a bit of tough love time. So if you're tracking too much operational detail at board level, things like hours per brief, individual utilization, task completion rates, they're your operational management, not your strategic oversight. So this scorecard doesn't replace your operational management, it sits above it to give you early warnings. So you still need the UK's leading agency management system, Synergist, for your detailed project tracking and day-to-day management. But for your strategic decisions, for spotting problems early, that's what your scorecard is for. So, how do we build it? So, keeping it as simple as possible is essential. So, firstly, pick your board metrics. So, usually 12 to 15. To do this, pick 3 to 4 perspectives from the metrics we've just mentioned. So, your financial, customer, process, and growth metrics. Then use the so what test. So, if a metric changes and you're not going to act on it, don't track it. Secondly, show trends, not just numbers. So, for example, if you see overservicing trends go from 5 to 8 to 11%, this would trigger your red flag. Why is this happening? What do we need to do about it? And then thirdly, set trigger points. So, for example, your pipeline is going to fluctuate, but if the conversions have been dropping for 3 months, That's potentially when you need to intervene. Lastly, review meetings need to be regular and short. So, for example, every Monday for 15 minutes. Review what's trending wrong, what triggers have a red flag, and then choose one action per week and give someone accountability for it. Have all your dashboards ready for these meetings. So if you're using Synergist, pull your financial and your process data from there, and then add your customer and your learning metrics alongside to give you a full picture. And I've got three scorecard killers for you. So the first one is too many metrics. So if you have too many, you're going to track nothing properly. So the fix for that is start with one or two perspective and then add slowly. And then the second one, no ownership. So everyone's responsible means no one is. So the fix for that is to put names against the metrics and make them visible. And three, set and forget. So make sure you get a rhythm with the meetings. So weekly, looking at your process metrics, monthly, looking at your customer metrics, and quarterly, having that full review. So the rhythm matters as much as the metrics.
Absolutely. So, here's what most agencies miss. We mentioned board metrics are pretty much meaningless unless they change your daily behavior. So they need to be connected to your operations. So, as Kate mentioned, if your project NPS is a board metric, your project managers review feedback immediately after every project, not waiting to do it quarterly. If your over servicing is trending up, then your account managers should get automatic alerts like they can do in Synergist when a project hits 75, 80, 95% of budget. Client engagement is dropping, then your account managers should schedule more strategic reviews or perhaps increase more client face time. And then if innovation is below target, then those Friday afternoons become much more kind of sacred development time with you and your team. So we know that the agencies that win translate board metrics into operational habits. So when everybody knows how their daily work drives board metrics, that's when you see real transformation.
So, as usual, we've given you lots to think about in the last 20 minutes. I think we've only managed to squeeze in the word synergist three or four times, Steve.
Yeah.
So we'd like to leave you with three key takeaways. And the first one we have there is measure what matters. So your board metrics predict, your operational metrics deliver. So your board metrics exist to give you that early warning sign. So they tell you where the business is heading, not how busy everyone was yesterday. Your operational metrics are different. They're about your execution, so your hours, your tasks, your utilization, and your delivery. The mistake most agencies make is trying to mix the two. So boards get dragged into operational detail, and operational teams get buried in strategic metrics that they can't influence. So keep them separate but connected. When a board metric moves, it should trigger a change in operational behavior. So that's the bridge. That's where metrics stop being reporting and start being management.
And then second, we need to track trends, not snapshots. This month's number on its own, as we mentioned, is pretty much meaningless. What matters most is movement. So if you're overservicing at 5%, it isn't a problem. At next month, it's 8%, possibly. The month after, 11%. That's a pattern. So 3 months of movement tells you far more than a single kind of red or green cell in any report. So trends gives you context and they remove the kind of knee-jerk reactions and they also give you confidence to act early before the damage shows up in those financials.
And last but not least, predict, don't postmortem. Metrics must trigger immediate action. So if a board metric goes red, the response shouldn't be, let's review that at the next board meeting. It should be, what are we doing this week? A dip in pipeline conversion, sales review must be now. Client engagement dropping, that's when you get your senior client conversations this week. As I mentioned earlier, over servicing trending up, process intervention immediately. Metrics without actions are just decoration, and Christmas is over. So, the agencies that win board metrics as a trigger system, early signal, fast response, small corrections before the big problems. That's how you move from explaining performance to shaping it.
Absolutely. So, as promised, finish around the 20 past mark. Thank you once again for joining us this morning in this short session around the metrics. Any other questions about today's topic or anything else, then do drop us a line or connect with myself or Kate on LinkedIn. The next in our series of Agency Masters is all about building client rapport, and we'll ping you details of that later today, as well as a copy of this kind of recording. So if you want to watch it later or share it with your team, you might have also seen as well that we do have a YouTube channel. So alongside Agency Masters, we have Jay's A Game. So if you do have 20 minutes, 30 minutes free, head over there and you can get some more content from there. Also, if you want some more kind of agency specific content, then do head over to our website, Agency Works website, and there's plenty on there too. Thanks once again for joining us. Thank you, Kate, for jumping on as usual. Love your insights and hope you'll have a great day and look forward to seeing and speaking to you at some point soon.
There were a couple of questions actually, Steve, so we'll get back to those people
Good
independently.
spot.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. Thanks for that.
Brilliant. Thanks,
Take care.
guys.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.